This is the Sunday stream opening song because the other song is copyrighted. La 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 la. Oh, look, here comes Dog Cat Fox.
Hi, Sky.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday stream. The stream I do on Sundays because Sunday is the day to stream on Sundays. Hope you're all doing well on this beautiful Sunday morning. I mean, it's more beautiful now because it's actually lighter out, thanks to the wonderful world of daylight savings time. Yes, if you haven't already set your clocks back an hour, then you're probably wondering why the stream is an hour late or something, if I got that right. Anyway, yes, we return once again to Sunday mornings on various topics of interest, at least to me, on subject matter, if nothing else. I don't know where I'm going with this, but then I'm pretty sure our speakers probably aren't either, or something. Anyway, who's joining me this morning, this Sunday morning? Good Sunday morning. Mike Savage, Blarg. Noah Asensio, hi. Matt Barnes, hey, Scribe and Chat, long time no see. Been super busy, still am, but listening as I work. Well, hey, Matt Barnes. Hope your workday is all right. Mike R., hey, guys. Kiro Soldier, hey, Matt and Noah. Oh, nothing for me, huh? I see how it is. TC LaChance, hello. Fun Time Bats, hi, Scribe. Who else? Rotten Corpse, sup, folks. Tall Person, hoy, all. Let's see. Derek LaRue, thank you so much, as always. Good morning to you, Derek LaRue. And your generosity and support, appreciate it. Hope you're having a good Sunday morning on this daylight savings time. Let's see, who else is here? Thank you, Derek. Shadowclaw, awoo. Ryan R. with the hand waves. Raziel, no, it's standard time now. Oh, stop messing with my... The hour changed. The process is called daylight savings. I don't care what it is. Miranda Stone, as my voice breaks, is like, would you like some fries with that? Well, Miranda Stone, good morning. This is late. I forgive you. It's not late. The hour changed. You see, that's how that works. Anybody else that I missed? Advocatus Diabli, morning even. Morning to you. Bishop, happy Sunday. Happy Sunday to you. And I think that is everyone I see. If I missed you, if you're lurking, or if you're in the future, good morning. All right, so today, I've made this joke several times in the recent past, but today, or I should say yesterday, I came across something from our friends, if you can believe it, at Stanford. Yes, Stanford University wants to tell us about teachers learning how healing is resistance, helping students manage racialized stress. I mean, with an opener like that, how can I not be intrigued to find out how teachers are going to help students manage racialized stress? Because teachers, as we know, are life coaches and personal therapists. They're not educators. They're not there to teach you how to think. No, they're there to, I don't know, therapeuticize you. I don't even know if that's a word. I just made it up. I'm creative like that. Sabian 187, I'm here. Good morning. You're here. Good morning to you. Jam. Good morning, Scribe. Good morning, Jam. Let's see. Anybody else before I begin here? Anyway, yeah, so this is I guess this is a conference they're having, a virtual 2 or 3 day conference they had and they broadcast. I guess we'll find out as we go. I checked a little bit to make sure there wasn't any land acknowledgement or here's a itinerary of our next programs or events or something at the beginning. I don't think there is. I think they get into the conversation, as it were, fairly quickly. But if there is anything like that, I will I will try to skip over it. Mr. Tickle Trunk, good morning with the happy, smiley dog cat fox. Oh, dog cat fox.
Wow. Wow.
Sinatra says dog cat fox. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk, and good luck on your stream upcoming in the Void Crew. If you guys don't know about the Void Crew, over on Fat Steven Seagal's channel, if I'm not mistaken. Mr. Tickle Trunk, Script Doctor, Steven Seagal, and Wolvie, not Wolvie, weekly do a survival sort of multiplayer game stream. So take a look at that if you haven't already. I think they start in about half an hour. So if you do become bored with Stanford University, and I can understand why, there's always action and adventure to be had over on Script Doctor's channel and Fat Steven Seagal's channel. So go take a look at that. Anyway, so let's get into it. This clocks in at just under an hour. I'm going to go for an hour and a half in real time. We're going to learn, apparently, how Stanford and their educational department is teaching teachers how to help students manage racialized stress. And I wonder who's doing the racializing. I suppose we'll find out. All right, let's go. Improving lives through learning, Stanford Graduate School of Education. Improving lives through learning. Oh, boy.
Thank you for joining us and welcome to day 2.
Day 2? Yep, this is a multiple day thing. And when I was prepping the video, I kept wondering, is that AI art? I kept looking because these days everything is in question now, right? I was looking at the fingers and I was looking at things. I think it might be legit, but it's hard to say. But yes, for those of you listening at home, the title card is Welcome RILE. I'm sure that means something specific. 2023, pushing back, resisting the attack on diversity in education. Is it the attack on diversity or the attack on unrelated matters to education? Putting it simply, I don't know.
Of the Conference on Race and Equality, Language and Education at Stanford's Graduate School of Education. My name is Brian Brown, and I have the privilege of representing my colleagues as the chair of the program.
Well, hi, Brian. Hope you're having a good day. RILE. What's that mean again?
Today, we are excited to really bring forward a group of people who really meet theory to practice. Many of the discussions about mental health are left at a sense of helplessness.
Mental health? I thought that, okay, so is this an educational program about mental health providers? What?
But these scholars do something different. They offer us an opportunity to think about what we know and what we can do to really build a community of healthy young people. There's nothing better than the joy of young people, and being able to see that brought out is a really powerful tool. So today,
where are the parents in this equation? And how many times have I asked that question at the top of streams and panel discussions such as these? I can't wait to hear where the educator's role in raising healthy and productive young people ends and the parents begin, or vice versa.
We have an incredible group of scholars to help us understand what we can do to help support the healthy development and growth of our young people.
Our young people.
To make sure we do the proper job of introducing this incredible group of thinkers and leaders, I'm going to introduce one of our scholars. Our moderator today will be Emma Keller.
Ian McKellen? Ian McKellen is the moderator of this panel talk? Oh boy, Magneto himself. Or Gandalf, I suppose, whatever your priorities are.
Emma Keller is a doctoral student in our developmental and psychological sciences program here in the School of Education. She's also a part of our program on race and equality, language and education.
I see. RILE, race, inequality, language, and education. RILE. Race, inequality, language, and education. Language policing for racial justice.
Emma received her BS in Youth and Social Motivation and a BS in English at the University of Virginia.
BS in Youth and Social Motivation and a BS in English. A BS in English? I didn't know English was a science.
Her research centers on the experiences of Black biracial adolescents, particularly in the areas of racial socialization, racial identity development, and psychological well-being.
Racial identity development. What a lovely pursuit.
Her ultimate goal is to understand how parents and siblings can engage in racial socialization.
How parents and siblings can engage in racial socialization. Is that just fancy terms for self-imposed racial segregation? I don't know.
And form effective interventions that mitigate racial stress for young people and promote positive mental health for all outcomes for all racially minoritized students.
Positive mental health outcomes for all racially minoritized students. So anybody who doesn't fall within those demographics can just go nuts and we won't care? Okay.
Do me a favor and welcome Emma forward.
Hi, everyone. So thank you all for joining us for the second day of this conference.
Sure.
And thank you very much to the organizers of this event who have worked so hard to make these really important conversations happen.
I love important conversations. I also like courageous conversations, Glenn Singleton. My favorite kind of conversations.
So today I have the privilege of introducing our three.
Well, privilege is all over the place. He was happy to have the privilege for this, and she's happy to have the privilege for that. Boy, this conference is rife with privilege, everybody. I think that makes it more suspicious, doesn't it?
Second day of this conference. And thank you very much to the organizers of this event who have worked so hard to make these really important conversations happen. So today I have the privilege of introducing our three speakers, the authors of the recently released Healing Racial Stress Workbook for Black Teens.
Healing Racial Stress Workbook for Black Teens. Okay.
Skills to help you manage emotions, resist racism, and feel empowered.
Skills to manage emotions, resist racism, and feel empowered. Sounds like a healthy guidebook for life, doesn't it?
This workbook arrives at a pivotal moment when the weight of racial stress on young shoulders is more evident than ever.
It arrives at a pivotal moment when the sales of such a book will probably go up thanks to the propaganda based around the moment of racial reckoning that's still reverberating through our culture. Oh, sorry, that was just my interpretation.
But before we dive into this timely conversation, I'd like to share a bit more about our speakers.
Okay.
Dr. Farzana Salim is an assistant professor in the Graduate School of Education at Stanford University.
Stanford! I'm not going to do it every time they say Stanford, but part of my brain wants to.
She earned her PhD in clinical and community psychology from the George Washington University. Dr. Salim's research examines the influence of racial stressors and culturally relevant practices like racial socialization on the psychological health, academic success, and well-being of Black adolescents and other youth of color.
All right, so how does this work in the classroom? I mean, in the course of the regular school day, you've got a classroom with, let's say, just for hypothetical sake, you got 25% white, 25% Black, 25% Latino, and 25% Asian. Just, very balanced. Okay. So in the course of a teacher's school day with this classroom makeup, you're going to do what specifically to the 25% of your classroom as far as this therapy is concerned? How much time does that take? What exactly is involved with it? And what do you do with the other 75% of your classroom that doesn't count? Right? That's what I'm wondering. Where does this fall into the curriculum on a daily or weekly basis in a classroom? And yeah. And let me read for those of you listening at home, they have a picture of the book up on the screen. It says, An Instant Help Social Justice Book for Teens. So this is a book to be given to your students. Healing Racial Stress Workbook for Black Teens. Skills to help you manage emotions, resist racism, and feel empowered. Respond to racial stress and traumas. Deal with microaggressions. Build resistance and resilience. Oh boy, microaggressions and trauma.
Dr. Jessica Henry is a licensed clinical psychologist in Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Georgia, a national consultant, curriculum developer, and author. She is the co-founder and vice president of program development and evaluation for the Black Mental Wellness Corporation.
The Black Mental Wellness Corporation. Okay, so it's a business, you say? All right.
And founder and CEO of Community Impact Consultation and Psychological Services.
Wow, she's quite the businesswoman.
A trauma-informed organization whose mission is to provide services to individuals and organizations affected by traumatic events.
Traumatic events, just in general, or racialized traumatic events?
Dr. Henry is the current Senior Director of Behavioral Health for one of Washington, D.C.'s largest federally qualified health centers, and the previous clinical director of a level 5 close security male prison and Georgia's largest youth homeless shelter.
Wow.
She received her bachelor's from Howard University, master's from Columbia University, and PhD in clinical psychology from the George Washington University.
Well, by those credentials, I could only call this person an expert. So I appreciate that.
After receiving her PhD in 2014, she moved to Atlanta, Georgia, where she completed her postdoctoral fellowship at Emory University School of Medicine. Dr. Nicole Kamick is a licensed clinical psychologist in Maryland and Washington, D.C.
So they're all neighbors. Okay.
She's founder, president, and CEO of Black Mental Wellness Corporation.
Oh, so, okay, they're coworkers. Okay.
And she also owns Healing Generations Psychological Services and Consultation Center, LLC, a private practice in Washington, D.C.
Boy, all these private practices and corporations and everything built around racial stress. Huh. And now they have a book to sell. Okay.
Dr. Kamick received her bachelor's degree from Howard University and her PhD in clinical psychology from the George Washington University. Lastly, she completed a specialized postdoctoral fellowship with the National Center for School Mental Health at the University of Maryland, Baltimore School of Medicine.
Wait a second. What's going on? Hold on. You're ridiculous. How the shit you got 2K likes? Describe like 2K likes on what? 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 2K likes on what? Is there 2,000 likes on this video already? That would be something. That would be something. That would also probably be a flaw. You see 2,000 likes? Wait a second. Okay, sorry. Apologies for the diversion here, but when somebody says something like that, I can't help but want to see what it is that they're talking about. Okay, I have to go over here. I see 19 likes, which is great. I appreciate that. I see 19. I don't see 2,000. If there were 2,000, I would be over the moon, lunatic. But no, I only see 19. So maybe there was a glitch in your matrix or something. But let's aim for 2,000 for this stream. Hey, if you haven't already hit the like button, let's work towards that 2,000. Yeah. Oh yeah, sure. Tweet me a screenshot. I'm not being facetious. It's like if you see something that interesting, by all means, tweet it out or put it on the Discord or something. That's something. That'd be something. Also, good morning, John Trioxin. Who else did I see here that I haven't said hello to yet? A guy in his room. Good morning. Anybody else? Spoonie the Rebel. Good morning. And if I missed you, anybody else? Oh, those ain't real, dude. Good morning. All right. So we have our experts. They're all part of the same corporation and or conglomerate and or LLC and or they all selling this book on racialized stress, which their businesses are based around. All right.
Throughout her career, she has continually focused on mental health issues specific to the Black community and identifying ways to address the cultural and systemic issues that impact Black mental health and wellness.
Because Black mental health and wellness is different than anybody else's health and wellness because of skin color. Okay.
We are honored to have all three of you here to share your invaluable research and practices, shedding light on the impacts of racial stress.
Sure.
Following the presentation, there'll be ample time for questions from the audience. So without further ado, let's hear from Dr. Salim, Henry, and Kamick.
Well, I'll say this, at least, as compared to many other panel discussions I look at. for the most part, we went right into the speaker biographies. There wasn't a land acknowledgement. There wasn't a calendar of upcoming events or anything else like that. So kudos on efficiency.
Thank you so much, Emma, for that wonderful introduction. We are happy to be here today and to bring you some components of our recently published workbook, Healing Racial Stress Workbook for Black Teens. And we will be doing a sort of a reflection and application from the workbook. Next slide.
Next slide.
So just to give you all a roadmap of what you can expect, first, we wanted to start off by giving you a brief overview. How do we understand racism and how does racial stress impact you?
Okay. Well, I mean, I at least appreciate the attempt at definitions because, we don't have enough definitions in the world. Let's see real quick here. Let's see if I can do this without interrupting too much in the stream. Mr. Mr. Tickle, your ridiculous lunatic, pardon me, my brain is all over the place, has sent a screenshot of what I'm assuming Luna is a he, but I don't know. It's possible it's not. And so I'm going to bring it up here as no, wait, I can't do it like that. Hold on. Pardon me, guys. I'm trying to, not as a background. I want to make it as a new overlay, at least for a moment. That's what I want to do. There we go. Okay. So let's see if I can do this without completely screwing up the stream. It's probably going to look goofy for a second, but here we go. All right. So this is what Luna is seeing. And if you see right there at the underneath my little insignia with the thumbs up, 2K, 2,000 likes. Now, if somewhere in the algorithm, this glitch is actually affecting the visibility of my stream and my channel somewhere, maybe on mobile devices, I'm not going to complain, but that is bizarre. That is decidedly bizarre. So there's the evidence. 2,000 likes. Man, wouldn't it be fun if I had bank error in your favor kind of Monopoly card for YouTube? That'd be great. Anyway, thank you, Luna, for that interesting anomaly. Let's move back to the show, and we're going to get definitions of what is racism, what is racial stress, etc.
And although our workbook is for teens, we want you to also think about yourself as we go through the presentation today.
It says the stream was 10 hours ago. I scheduled it 10 hours ago. Something's going on between YouTube and mobile, I'm assuming. I don't know. Anyway.
Think about when you were a teen and or your role in the lives of teens that you may be working with.
My role in the lives of teens I may be working with. Well, if I am a teacher, if I'm an educator, my role is as an educator, not as a psychologist, and not as a therapist, not as a life coach necessarily. Where are the parents?
Secondly, we will talk about skills. So building skills for navigating racism.
Okay.
And we will go through a game plan. How do you deal with racism in the world? And we will talk about some of the main environments that teens may encounter racism and how do you develop a game plan? And then we will end with question and answer. So that will be a time for you to interact with us. We do want this to feel interactive and conversational.
Well, I do too. That's why I have to pause occasionally for the sake of commentary and criticism in order to make this a transformative work and qualify for fair use. Unfortunately, I was not there live when this was happening. I'd be curious to know what I would have asked if I'd had the opportunity. But yeah, these things always happen. And then how is anyone outside of the people directly involved in this organization or this event to know that these things happen? Well, you have to, raise your visibility. I don't know how to do that on YouTube. I've never really learned the trick, but I always come into these things after they've already happened. And on a rare occasion, I've had the opportunity to comment while a live stream's been going on. The most memorable one was it NPR? I think it was either NPR or New York Times. Somebody was having a live stream on Twitter talking about business and racism and stuff, and I cooked up the most ridiculous, nonsensical social justice question I could possibly come up with and fed it to them through Twitter, and they actually read it on the air. I've got that stream somewhere. When they finally posted the stream in total, I've got that stream somewhere on my channel. I don't remember what I called it, but that was one of the most entertaining instances where I had actual interaction with one of these things. But in this case, I can only do it retroactively.
And so if there are questions that come up, please add them in the chat and we will either address them at the end, or if they are appropriate for the slide we're on, we'll try to incorporate it at that time. Next slide. So now we want to present some of the poll results that you all may have answered.
Okay.
Okay, so we were trying to get a feel for who's in the room. So we have some district and county leadership.
Okay, and I can't help but be distracted by the fact that the speaker's background, chroma key, whatever, keeps making her hair coming in and out of reality. It's a little distracting, but all right. So poll results. What experiences are we bringing to this conversation? I don't even know what we're talking about yet.
Teachers, and there's a lot of people we don't know. So if you didn't get a chance to answer this question, you can always feel free to add it to the chat just to let us know your primary occupational role.
My primary occupational role. Okay.
Okay. And in this question, we really wanted to get into, again, as we're talking about teens, we want you to center your own experiences and think about, what you may have encountered. And so we wanted to get a feel for what are some of the experiences that you've personally encountered as it relates to racism. And if I'm looking, the top one was witnessing mistreatment of another person due to race. And so we'll talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so it's all going to be anecdotal examples that someone has interpreted potentially as racist. Because when on your book cover it says microaggressions, which in its own definition and is hard to avoid, are instances where someone can be interpreting an action that has absolutely no intent behind it as racist. Not a good start if you're going to be talking anecdotal stuff.
We have microaggressions and
wait, am I psychic again? Am I becoming psychic, or am I just too practiced at this?
Cultural insensitivity.
Yeah.
It seems like you all have experienced all of them to some extent. Humiliating and shaming comments.
Oh my gosh. Taking offense, internalizing someone else's comment is bad, even if it might not be actually bad. Yeah. Creating a victim narrative for yourself. It's running through.
Feeling isolated, racial battle fatigue.
Racial battle fatigue. Racial battle fatigue? What? Oh, gee. Oh, I got to remember that one. Racial battle fatigue. Let's add that to our lexicon, everybody. Boy, oh boy. I decide to march out into the world, sensitive to the point of microaggression interpretation. And when I come home again, I have suffered racial battle fatigue.
Representation for the entire race.
Representation for the entire... Who... Okay. How often is it the case that people are actually required to represent the entire race? Huh? Unless we're talking about tokenism. Right? And that never happens in DEI. That never happens in anti-racist thinking. No. Who's asking who to represent? Who's asking for representation oftentimes?
Those were all in the 50s. We want you to think about those experiences and sort of use this to center today as we think about, how it may impact you, what a game plan looks like, and moving forward, and how we can use this to inform the work you do with youth.
Yes. How can we use this to inform the work you do with youth? That's the more insidious implication of the whole thing. Come on, let's get on with it.
Next poll.
Next poll.
And then how much knowledge do you have about racial stress and trauma?
Okay. I don't know where... Do these cards change? Next poll. Okay, she's citing things that are not appearing on the screen, so I don't know if she's got her tabs or whoever's producing this has got the tabs messed up or something, but the poll results are not appearing on screen, so I only have her words to go off of. I don't have any visuals to cite.
And so a moderate amount seems to be, for most people, 58%. And for this presentation, that's why we're here today, right? We're going to talk about some of these things. This is the beginning of a conversation
You guys are having technical difficulties. None of your poll results are appearing on the screen. And I know I'm wasting my time saying so, but it's just, again, for those of you listening, I don't know what they're talking about because we can't see it.
We hope to provide you with some resources if you would like to continue this work as well. And again, we'll have a section for question and answers if there are things that we haven't addressed during the presentation.
You mentioned, okay.
Okay, and then how comfortable do you feel? So how much you know and how comfortable you are two very different things. It seems like around 53% is somewhat comfortable, and then there's very comfortable. And what I
comfortable with what? What are we talking about? Oh man!
often tell people is sometimes these conversations are not always comfortable.
What conversations? Give me the roundabout summary of a conversation, and then how comfortable people are having it. What are you talking about?
Even if we've had our own experiences or we have knowledge, sometimes in the moment, it can still feel uncomfortable. But what we know is that there are tools to help us have the conversations.
Have the conversation.
That may help to make it a little more comfortable. And we need to have a lot of these difficult conversations. So
have a difficult conversation
so that we can get to a place, especially as we think about our youth, where they're getting the resources and the tools and the supports that they need.
That they need, or that you are forcing upon them and telling them that that's how the world works.
And thank you all for answering those questions, and we'll go to the next slide.
Great. So, hi, everyone. We are going to start the presentation, as Dr. Hadamak said, with an overview of just understanding some basic definitions to ensure everyone is on the same page.
Excellent. Okay. And I always mean this when I say it. I love it when people define their terms. I don't love it when someone says they're going to define their terms and they never define their terms, which is often the case in these things. But okay, my fingers are crossed. My hopes are high. Give me some flat, basic, non-convoluted definitions of terms.
As it relates to what we mean when we're talking about racial stress and trauma. Next slide.
Next slide.
So for a simple definition, we define racial stress and trauma as the emotional and physical response to negative race-related experiences. So these can be things like racism, discrimination, and this can lead to trauma.
Okay, is that racial stress and trauma because of intentional, overt actions taken on the part of someone external to the individual? Or how much of that is interpretive? How much of that is self-imposed? Right? Because again, with microaggressions, you can't get away from the inherent part of that definition, wherein those instances might be unintentional and interpretive by the receiver. But let me read that again for clarity. Racial stress and trauma, the emotional and physical response to negative race-related experiences, e.g. racism, racial discrimination, which can lead to racial trauma. Negative race-related experiences. So there are positive race-related experiences. So if I'm discriminated in favor of rather than against, then that doesn't create racial stress and trauma because I'm the beneficiary of positive, for me, racial discrimination. All right. Or if I have a positive race-related experience where I am meant to feel empowered due to my race, as opposed to someone with a different race, obviously that's not going to lead to racial stress and trauma. That's going to lead to racial empowerment, right? I just like the word negative in there. It has to be a negative race-related experience. Okay.
Doesn't mean that every experience will be traumatic, but it's possible that this could lead to trauma.
Oh, okay. All right. Possible.
When it leads to racial trauma, typically this means that it's elicited some sort of emotional or psychological harm that threatens psychological and physical integrity and safety.
Has elicited emotional or psychological harm, or given someone an excuse to say that they've experienced emotional or psychological harm.
It impacts daily life functioning. And typically you see this happening more long term in terms of ongoing effects.
Okay.
And to be clear, so racial trauma can happen in response to a single situation that happens, or it could also be the accumulation of multiple incidents.
Oh, so compound interest on racism. Okay.
That over time develop an impact that mirrors trauma and trauma symptoms. And so this can be both something that happens directly, as we looked at in the poll questions. So this can happen to you as an individual, or it can be something that's vicarious. So something that you are witnessing.
Or interpreting by choice.
Happening to someone else in the community.
In the community. Okay.
And so there are many ways in which youth can experience race-related stressors, right? So where you live, where you go to school, where you hang out. Of course, social media is another way that now we know that youth are experiencing different types of stressors, including race-related stressors online.
Well, yeah, but let's just make sure you're only talking about Black youth, right? We're not talking about any other kind of youth, just Black youth. That was your focus. But okay, so but this can affect anybody. Okay, so can it affect white youth or Asian youth?
And so all of these factors influence exposure. And in addition to that, I think it's important to recognize that every day there are things that are happening that are traumatic in our world.
Yeah, if you don't know how to handle your own emotions or be able to separate yourself from certain situations or decide to accept into yourself drama, stress, and victim narratives that you don't belong to, yeah, it's true. Everything's traumatic all the time.
And the effects will vary across persons. So a similar situation could happen to me, and that similar situation could happen to Dr. Henry, and we have very different responses to that.
Why? You're both Black? Why? So wait. So are you meaning to tell me that different individuals interpret things in different ways depending on their personal experiences, their personal perception of things, their belief systems, their knowledge? Then why, might I ask, do you attribute all of this to skin color? What has it got to do with skin color?
And no matter how often you experience racial stress and trauma, it can impact you in some sort of way, right?
It can impact you in some sort of way. Okay. Yeah, it can impact me in some sort of way. Positively, negatively, minusculely, majorly. Yeah. All right. I mean, I guess if you set the bar that low, then everything qualifies.
Right. So it can change the way you view the world.
It can.
It can influence your thoughts.
It can.
Your relationships. And just because something doesn't end up being traumatic doesn't mean that it's not stressful. And
let's keep widening the net. Of
course, we know that stress is linked to consequences too. And Dr. Henry will be talking more about that in just a bit in our presentation.
Okay. Before I continue with this, thank you, Alan Filer, for the good job, Dog Cat Fox. Oh, Dog Cat Fox?
Wowie, wow.
That's a Kiever Dam Dog Cat Fox. Thank you so much, Alan. Appreciate it. Hope you're having a good Sunday so far. Yeah, let's keep working on getting that mythical 2,000 likes on the stream, guys. Keep going. We'll get there. It was an echo from the future. Future echoes. You see that episode of Red Dwarf? I did many, many times. Yeah, what Your Ridiculous Lunatic found was actually an echo from the future. We just need to keep working on it. We'll get there eventually. The timelines will intersect. Oh boy, when racism is easy to see. For those of you listening at home, there's a card up now. Oh boy, when racism is easy to see. All right.
So we wanted to break down different experiences of racism and put them in ways that hopefully teens can understand. And so this first slide.
You mean Black teens, right? This is only for Black teens. Your book is for Black teens. So educators are supposed to be using this information to do what with the portion of their classroom that qualifies? Let's Let's keep that in mind, right? That is the point of all this.
It looks at when racism is easy to see.
Okay.
So this is what we call those overt racist actions. And so they are the easiest to see, and it's not hidden. It's more straightforward. And so that's where we think about like hate speech.
Hate speech. Who determines what is hate speech? The person thus offended?
Racial slurs.
Racial slurs. Okay. Well, those are a bit more specific, depending. Yeah. Okay.
Someone using the N-word and
someone using the N-word, just in any context.
Class, hate crimes, racial teasing. So,
whoa, hate crimes. Whoa. Okay, actual criminal activity and teasing. You put hate crimes, established criminal activities next to teasing, huh? Okay.
These are things that when most people see it, they would identify it as racism. But there are often...
Whoa. Wait. You jumped from that card to the next card way too quick. Let's try this again. Okay. Let's just read this. And by the way, they have some image up that blocks out part of the text. When racism is easy to see. Overt racist actions are the easiest to see, unlike the less obvious or more hidden forms of racism. Right, the secret ones, the invisible ones, the microaggressions, and the systems and things. Examples include hate speech, discrimination, or treating people differently based. And then they have it covered up with a graphic of somebody holding up a sign that says Kids Against Racism. I'm assuming it says something to the effect of discrimination or treating people differently based on race. So why is your book for Black teens? I mean, that's pretty discriminatory, isn't it? You've decided that racial stress only applies to one racial demographic. That's discriminating or treating people differently based on their skin color. Okay. Racial slurs, a teacher using the N-word in class. That's on the card. A teacher using the N-word in class. So if a student does it, it's okay? What? Okay. Hate crimes and racial teasing. What does racial teasing look like? And does that ever occur between people of the same race, do I wonder?
Racial slurs, someone using the N-word in class.
Not someone, you said a teacher.
Hate crimes, racial teasing. So these are things that when most people see it, they would identify it as racism.
Okay.
But there are often times when racism is hidden, and it's not as easy to see. And those are the times where a person may be questioning, did that just happen?
Yeah, this is the time in which you have to read between the lines of a cookbook oftentimes to find offense to be taken.
Do I feel this way? And we call that covert racism. So it's not as easy to see. It may be a little more difficult to recognize.
It also might not have actually happened. Are you going to include that possibility as well? That it might not actually be there, that you might be looking for windmills to tilt at?
Because it's a lot more subtle.
So subtle that maybe sometimes it's not actually there.
And because of that, that fact that it's subtle, the person may say, oh, that wasn't racist, or deny that it was racist. And the person who's experiencing it, again, may be replaying it and questioning whether it was in fact racism.
Then whose problem is that? Okay, so, but the possibility that it wasn't racist, that there was no intent, that it was completely interpretive. You're not even going to leave that as a possibility? I guess that would kind of give doubt to the whole anti-racist mythology about how racist is constant and in all things at all times, so on.
And so, some examples of where we see this coming up often is like if we think about racial profiling.
Racial profiling, okay. In the classroom? Huh, you mean like making an entire book about one racial demographic and then telling teachers that this demographic needs special attention? That kind of profiling?
Or holding these negative stereotypes about a group of people and it's solely based on their race.
Like an entire racial demographic experiences racial stress more so than any other demographic, so you have to write a workbook for that demographic because they're inherently more susceptible to it? That kind of negative stereotype?
As we think about policies in schools, especially as we think about our youth, that unfairly ban students from wearing their hair in its natural state.
unfairly ban students from wearing their hair in its natural state. Well, that got really specific.
So, there was recently, I know Dr. Henry will talk about this, but there have been national stories repeatedly about students being unable to wear their hair.
Really? Huh, national stories, huh? Well, I guess society's just totes racist for profiling those stories or something. All right. Thank you, C. Thomas. Remember a time when we didn't need an abacus, atlas, and technical manual to spot the racism? Pepperidge Farms remembers. Yeah, well, when you get to covert racism, it's like, okay, you're inviting people to see racism everywhere, at all times and all things. And that is a necessary component of both the anti-racist movement, CRT, and also DEI. I mean, the problem has to be persistent. It has to always be there. It has to be secret. It has to be safe within the minds of people, even if they're not actually racist. As long as the person says it's so, it's so. So yes, but I mean, we can't sell books on a maybe. It has to be a certainty. Also, a couple more hellos for people that I've seen pop in since the show began. Real quick here, if I can get this. JB, good morning. Who else did I saw somebody in particular. I saw a particular set of legs. Jeanette E. Hellis, good morning. She got them gams. She does.
And this is also where we think about things like institutional racism and systemic racism. So it's hidden. And one final point is that even though it's not easy to see, there are a lot of consequences that come from it.
If you choose to think that racism is everywhere. And here's the thing. Let's say for an example, that someone does something overtly racist. There's no covert to it. There's no question. They come up to you in the middle of class and they say something terrible to you, race related, right? What happens then? What you choose to have happen. This is why you need to build up. I'm talking to parents now. You need to build up the self-esteem, right? Self-confidence and self-awareness in your child that someone being mean does not mean that what they're saying is true about you, or it doesn't reflect more on them than it does on you. So really, all this stuff is a choice. All the effects of it is a choice. Yeah, there might be a totally racist person in the classroom. There could be somebody saying something who's not really racist, but just trying to rile you up, R-I-L-E, and trying to get a reaction out of you. The question is, are you going to fulfill their desires? Or are you going to move on with your life, classify them as a jerkwad to begin with, and just be a better person for the sake of it? I don't know, because for all of this stuff, it sure sounds like, hey, kids, specific demographic of kids, you're always going to be victims. Let us help you manage your inherent victimhood. Rather than just say, that way of thinking is stupid, and I'm going to go over here and have some fun with my friends. That might be the best way to deal with quote unquote racial trauma, is to not worry about race. If the person making you feel bad is a racist and they focus inordinately on race and try to evaluate people on the basis of race, wouldn't the best way to combat that to make race an irrelevancy?
Both for the individual who's experiencing it or the group of people, but also how does this impact quality of life and all of these other factors for youth in these different settings?
I don't know. Tell me, how does it affect quality of life for youth in all these different settings, specific youth?
And then when you're unsure, it is racism. So
okay. All right, here we go. If you're unsure it's racist, so somebody says something, and you're sitting there going like, was that racist? What do you do when there is a large portion of doubt to making yourself the victim of somebody else's action or words? What do you do?
So this is not as clear. So when we think about microaggressions, and one of the ways that we think about microaggressions, if you think about the verbal statement, so something offensive or hurtful that someone may say to you,
Something that you've decided to take offense to and say you're hurt by, you mean?
It could be behaviors, something someone may do towards you.
Someone that does something that you decide to take as a personal slight of your own volition.
Or environmental, like a lack of representation in an environment.
Lack of representation. Wasn't somebody lamenting the idea of someone representing an entire race a minute ago?
Or rules that are offensive and not inclusive of the experience of Black people.
Such as what? Are we going to go into back to the hair example?
So, for example, if we think of a verbal statement, something that may be wrapped up as, oh, this is a compliment of saying you're pretty for a Black girl.
Does that actually happen that often? You're pretty for and insert whatever demographic you're talking about. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it does happen, but is that really an uncertain racist example? Because that involves race. I don't know that that's an uncertainty at that point. It might be mild. It might be a backhanded compliment. But whether or not race is involved is not in question in that one, is it? Is that the best example you could come up with for an uncertainty of racist intent? Okay.
Or, oh, you speak very well, as if those things can't coincide with one another.
Well, if someone is from another country and you compliment them on their ability to speak what is to them a foreign language, is that what you're talking about? Or is this specifically for Black students? Pardon me. I got my microphone right in front of me. It was covering up part of the screen and part of the statement there. Sorry. Someone saying you're pretty for a Black girl as a compliment, or educators perceiving the same behaviors as aggressive or hostile when done by a Black student. The same behaviors. Okay, those are examples. All right.
There are also microaggressions show up when we think about schools and we're looking at discipline practices and suspensions, and educators or school staff may be perceiving the same behaviors differently based on the race of a student. So
may perceive. Okay.
Two students doing the same thing and maybe looking at it as aggressive or more hostile when it's done by a Black student.
Is there any instance in the modern educational zeitgeist where the actions of a white student undertaken by a student of a different color isn't going to be interpreted as more terrible because it's a white student? And if that ever happened, wouldn't you say that shouldn't happen?
We also want to think about implicit biases.
Implicit biases.
And this is something that we all have and need to be intentional about recognizing what they are and doing the work to change that. So these are the attitudes and beliefs that affect our behaviors. And we are not always consciously aware that it occurs.
So we just fill in the blanks with our imagination when the time comes?
It can happen and it's automatic and we're not even aware that it's happening. But we know, again, that there's impact that come from these biases.
Okay. So far, in all of the uncertainty, there's no doubt that it is happening, right? There's no instance where the person taking offense is wrong, because taking offense verifies the slight. There's never an instance where the recipient could be incorrect about their interpretation of events. As long as their interpretation is theirs, it's the correct one. And even if they don't have that interpretation, it's still happening even if they don't detect it. Boy, there really is no way to win in this, is it? You're always being victimized even when you don't even know it. C. Thomas, thank you again. Quote, if you're unsure, assume the worst intent, unquote. Got it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when in doubt, victim.
As we think about the legal system, college admissions, hiring, and they are, again, these automatic responses, and it can impact how you interact with people based on, these judgments that you make. So we can think about race, ability.
Okay, college admissions, that was an interesting one. So if a college is admitting me first and foremost on the basis of my race and discarding someone else's application on the basis of their race, is racialized trauma taking place with someone that's been not given an advantage over the subject of their race? But of course, for the person receiving the entrance into the college, that is a positive race-related situation. So that's not traumatic to anybody or anything. So I'm curious what our speakers think about the knocking down of affirmative action.
Ability, gender, culture, language. And finally, I just want to wrap up, as Dr. Farzana Salim said earlier, is that there's also we have to think about the experience of what you may witness. So even though it is not your direct experience,
even it's not my direct experience, I decide to live vicariously through somebody else and decide to take the harm on board for myself from their experience. Now I can relate myself to someone else's hardship, and now I am as much a victim as they are. It's the collateral theory of racial trauma.
You witness these things happening to a friend or a peer or a group of students, there is still an impact that it can have on you as well.
Sure.
And so in bringing this all together,
boy, they edited I did no editing of this stream. They were jumping from one thing to another. So I have a feeling, more than a feeling, that this wasn't actually broadcast live, or at least not live where anybody could see it on YouTube or something. So maybe I didn't miss anything.
This model, the developmental ecological model of youth racial trauma,
what
is one in which just lays out this from a conceptual standpoint.
Whoa, holy cow. Okay, for those of you listening at home, we now have a flow chart of amazing complexity. I'm not sure how much you will summarize this, but I will attempt to do so myself. The title of the card is Understanding Racial Stress and Trauma. And then you have a flowchart tree with squares and arrows and all types of stuff. So above everything, above the entire chart, it says epigenetic vulnerability from historical trauma. Epigenetic. I brought this up not too long ago in another stream, and I still don't quite understand. I think I did maybe I was watching an old stream. Anyway, epigenetic. Pretty complicated theory there, but okay. So epigenetic vulnerability from historical trauma. So stuff you just can't avoid. It's already in your genes. It happened 1 million years ago, and now it's just part and parcel with your makeup. Okay. Below that, we have, and outside of this circle, I can just imagine somebody listening to this without seeing the screen and trying to understand what it is I'm describing. I'm terrible at this. So developmental age is outside of all of this. So it's the consequence of the child's age takes play here. Okay. Racist events with an arrow going down to individual traumatic reaction. Then on the periphery, you have either family processes or contexts, and on the other side, community processes or contexts. And then below all of that, you have symptomatology. Okay. And then treeing out from symptomatology are 4 different things: re-experiencing intrusion, avoidance, negative mood and cognitions, and lastly, psychological arousal. Okay. All right. You know what? Let's say I'm trying to envision myself as a teacher in a classroom full of teenagers, right? So we're talking junior high. Let's just say junior high school, right? 8th, 9th grade, right in that middle area. And I've got this flow chart in front of me, and I've got this workbook at my side, and some portion of my classroom is black, because this entire thing is based around the idea that we're only talking about black students. What am I supposed to do with this in the course of a school day where I have, as a teacher, and if we're talking junior high, it might only be for like an hour, because the students go from one class to the next for different subjects. So if I've got an hour or an hour and a half, whatever it is, to teach my subject to my classroom, how much time out of doing a math lesson am I going to take to hold up this flow chart in front of my face and assess the students in my classroom who possess a particular skin color? And what does that look like? How is this supposed to work? I guess is my question. Thank you, JB. Okay, F off if trying to claim intrusive thoughts here. I don't know. I can't wait to find out where we're going with this, especially psychological arousal.
And we won't go through this extensively, but
what? Why not? Well, why? What? You put it up on the screen. You're not going to go through it extensively? I would love for you to go over this extensively. I would love to know how this is supposed to work. And again, most especially, how is this supposed to be employed or acted upon in a classroom with teenagers on a regular school day?
But just acknowledging, I think it's a helpful visual.
No, it is not a helpful visual without context and explanation.
Of historical trauma, right? So epigenetics, how behaviors and environments can change the way that your genes work. And so for some families, if we think about, particularly in the context today, the conversation of Black youth, understanding how historical trauma, the effects of that and how.
So wait. The teachers using this workbook are supposed to be epigeneticists at the same time that they're being psychologists and trauma easers and what?
How that might be passed down in different ways, visible and not.
How it might be passed down in different ways, visible and not. So invisible, to where you're going to have to conjure it up out of whole cloth.
And then when we think about race-related stressors, again, it can be a single incident or multiple incidents that lead to a traumatic response or oftentimes symptoms.
Right. We have to introduce the concept of intersectionality in here somehow.
Right. And this can vary by age. And so what the effects look like might vary very much so across development for young people. And so that.
Well, how about we focus on the teenage contingent? Because that was the focus of your book. So since that is your area of purported expertise, tell us about what is the teenage experience with this? You could at least give us that kind of specificity, right?
That's important for us to keep in mind. And also just wanted to highlight that there are different family and community level factors that influence the ways in which exposure might happen. But
such as... Thank you again, C. Thomas. This is the academic form of flat earth nonsense. Well, in the absence of any more context or information, I don't, yeah. All of it could be true, right? Like I say, let's just say for the sake of argument for a moment that everything they're talking about is absolutely true and it's all makes sense. How does this find its way into the school day? What happens on the ground with the school teacher and the teenagers that are under their supervision for an hour or 2 hours out of the day? How is this employed? That's ultimately what I want to. It could all be true. It could all be nonsense. I don't know. Well, I have a feeling I know, but let's just say, again, for the sake of argument, let's just, whatever it is, how does this find its way into the curriculum? What ultimately happens in the classroom based on this philosophy? That's what I want to know. All right, I want to see, how is it employed? You say, I'm talking about the speakers here, not you, C. Thomas. You say this is an answer to a problem. Okay, how is this answer applied? If you're not going to go into the details or anything else, at least give us the mechanics of its purpose. On the ground, in the trenches. That's what I want. That's what I want to know. That is my big question. I also want to know what psychological arousal and re-experiencing intrusion means. Think she'll go over that?
Also, protective factors can come into play.
Such as?
So we can think about the role that multiple contexts have in the way that youth both experience, but also can potentially process and manage race-related stressors.
Sounds like intersectionality to me.
And as a result, therapists often look for 4 different types of indicators.
Whoa, therapists. Okay. Are educators, math teacher, history teacher, social studies teacher, English teacher, are they also supposed to be therapists with this book? Does simply having this workbook of yours endow your Joe Average educator with a therapist's license?
Just like medical doctors might look for specific symptoms, for example, when you have the flu, there
are some objective, observable symptoms for disease, right?
Specific things that folks might be looking for to say, okay, do you have a fever? Are you sneezing? Are you coughing? So oftentimes, if you think about it from a therapeutic standpoint,
if I think about it from a therapeutic standpoint, what psychologically analyzing the teenagers in my classroom for the hour or two that they're in my presence a day for the purpose of the education I'm supposed to be providing them, math, science, history, English. Who is this for? How does this work?
Therapists are often looking for these pieces, which Dr. Henry will be going into examples of this. But
boy, Dr. Henry's being played up quite a bit. We haven't met Dr. Henry yet. So Dr. Henry must be the end all be all to this conversation.
Things like having reoccurring memories of something.
Reoccurring memories of something. Okay, at what point in the school day is the teacher doing memory therapy with a particular student?
Avoiding places.
Avoiding places. At what point in the course of the school day is the teacher quizzing a student about what places they avoid?
Having it affect your mood, or even just being hypervigilant.
Hypervigilant? Is that the synonym for psychological arousal? Hypervigilance? Why didn't you put hypervigilance down there? Psychological arousal sounds all inappropriate for the classroom.
And so Dr. Henry will elaborate on this now.
Okay, Dr. Henry, please. You've been played up to the moon. Please explain everything.
Okay, perfect. So racism can impact youth in a number of ways.
Racism can impact youth in a number of ways. Is not at all one of the options.
Like Dr. Salim just said, and which includes their thoughts, attitudes about their racial group, and their racial identity.
Racial group and racial identity.
And so while some youth are aware of their race, other youth do not think of their race as an important part of their identity.
And what a tragedy that is, to have someone not think of their race as defining anything about them. Heaven help us.
And different experiences with racism can shape and form how adolescents think about their race and racial identity. And so racism is also linked to how we think, feel, and behave, as Dr. Salim had mentioned.
Yeah, it's all about race, guys.
And so youth who experience racism and discrimination are more likely to report negative beliefs about and thoughts about themselves and the world.
Yes, if someone is actually experiencing racism on a regular basis, they're being belittled or otherwise on the basis of something they have no control over. It can leave lasting harm depending on that person's choice. I mean, I was teased and belittled and beat up and bullied when I was a kid over things I had no control over, like wearing glasses, like just being naturally, I suppose, more quiet and shy than other kids, and on and on and on. And it wasn't fun. And it left some scars, literally and figuratively. It's true. But at a certain point, I got to remember that bullies are bullies. They're the screwed up ones if they're taking the time out of their day to try to make somebody else feel miserable. So you move on with your life. You find a healthy way out from that as best as you can.
No one cares, right? No one can be trusted. The world is completely dangerous. And
you can get that result from a whole bunch of different things. It's not all about race, but I guess in this case, it has to be about race.
Distorted thoughts where they blame themselves. So examples of that is, it's my fault. I should have done something. I should have done more. They may also begin to ruminate on thoughts like they are killing us. It can happen to me. I hate the police.
Yeah. And who's pushing the notion that police are inherently untrustworthy murderers and need to be defunded and abolished. Is there any kind of, I don't know, organization or ideology or anything that's pushing that notion?
Well, those thoughts are true, right? We want to recognize that they are true.
Those thoughts are true. Oh, okay. So it's not a question of whether or not the police are out there murdering people just for the sake of murdering people based on their race. It is true. Or you mean the thoughts are true? Like you're not saying someone's thought is invalid? I'm confused.
Experiencing these thoughts over and over
experiencing these thoughts over and over again. Yes, obsessive compulsive behavior and everything else. Somebody keeps jamming those thoughts and those notions into your head day after day because of what you are, telling you that you're an inherent victim, telling you that people are out to get you, telling you that everything is racist that comes your way that you don't feel comfortable with, on and on and on. Yeah, where's that coming from? Where are all those intrusive thoughts coming from?
Can lead to feelings that consist of high levels of racial stress and anxiety, sadness, anger, guilt, and loneliness. Yeah. So it's important for us to just recognize that the impact that it has on our feelings. And so as a result, youth may begin to act out aggressively.
May. Okay.
So it's important for us to identify and acknowledge those behaviors.
Okay, so if a youth acts out aggressively, harms another student, destroys property or something, whatever it is, what, they get a pass because they say I'm racially stressed?
Act out aggressively, withdraw, isolate, engage in reckless and destructive behavior. Some of those examples are excessive drinking and self-harm.
You know, a lot of those things happen to teenagers because of growing up. Because of life changes, because of hormones, because of relationships, because of experiences they haven't had before where they're still trying to figure things out, because their brain is still developing. You know, those things might be common just in human beings growing up, regardless of their race, right? Because I experienced nearly all of those things, except for the drinking and drugs. I didn't do that stuff. DARE worked on me. But okay, you want to attribute all of that and mark any instance of that in a teenager, or I should say a specific teenager from a specific racial demographic, as an outgrowth of racial stress. Okay, seems like you might be sort of self-fulfilling your prophecy there, but all right.
They may also begin to appear jumpy and easily startled, like Dr. Salim said, you know, that hypervigilance, looking over their shoulders whenever the sirens go off.
Yeah, and who has endowed them with that kind of paranoia, I wonder?
When a cop or someone reminds them of them being easily jumpy. And so these thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in turn have an impact on their ability to trust and feel safe in their relationships.
And so thankfully, you have a convenient book for sale that tries to address these things that have been mightily imposed upon kids. Okay.
And so those feelings of irritability and anger can also influence their ability to get along with people that they once previously had good relationships with. And so depending on the context of their experience with racism, for instance, if it happened in school, it may cause them to want to even drop out of school. Again, those behaviors, what does that look like?
Oh, okay. So if some kid decides to give up school, it's not their fault. It's not their choice. It's racism's fault. Okay.
And so the great thing about this workbook is that we provide a number of character examples throughout this book.
You do? A number of character examples. Are they active examples, or did you just dream them up as characters?
For youth who have and have not experienced racism.
Oh, and have not? Oh, how about have, but just didn't give it any weight and moved on with their lives?
And we also provide a lot of opportunities and activities for these youth to explore the impact of racism and discrimination on who they are and how they interact with the world, or with a trusted adult.
A trusted adult. Okay. Why parents just maybe not?
With or without a trusted adult. But the truth is, our hope is that they do have a trusted adult to work through this workbook with.
Wait. with or without a trusted adult, you hope they have a trusted adult to work through this workbook with. How much is this workbook? How many copies do you recommend each classroom have? I wonder.
To make it even that much more impactful.
Now we're going to talk a little bit about building skills. So after youth understand racism and after they understand how it impacts them, we then go into the skill building process.
So once you've told kids how the invisible force of racism is always there in every instance, and any time that you might assume racism to exist, it does exist. And even if you're not sure racism is taking place, you're pretty sure racism is taking place. Once you've instilled this belief system into students, now you build the skills to navigate it. I think I used the same, probably badly, analogy not too long ago. Imagine kids set up a saltine cracker stand on one corner. You know, saltine crackers, 25 cents for 3. Wow, what a deal. Eat the crackers. Walking down the street, the very end of the street, lemonade stand, refreshing lemonade, $1 a glass. Now that I've created a scenario in which you're feeling like a victim all the time, whether it's actually happening or not, let me now offer you the ability to navigate this potential fiction in some capacity that I have created for you to experience and generate of your own volition now that you believe reality operates the way I've told you. Buy my book. Buy my book. Buy my book.
And so next slide. One of the things that we teach as a skill is how to just increase their comfort in initiating conversations on the topic with people that they trust to begin with.
Why do they need to talk about race? Why? To what end, for what purpose?
Right. So having them, for example, ask adults in their lives or people in their lives about their own experiences related to race-related stressors and their own feelings. And the idea behind this is that it not only builds connection, but it normalizes conversations as they learn about their own experiences and how people around them have navigated these different experiences. And some people might have parents that don't share the same racial identification as them. And so we're happy to chat about that in the Q&A.
You're happy to chat about, okay, so if an adult does not evaluate or value, I should say, race to the same extent that you're encouraging modern teenagers to do so, what do you do then? Oh, we'll talk about that in the Q&A.
But I think that there are other ways in which parents might be able to negotiate different other forms of identity in which they can experience and or say that they have not had that experience. But
what? What are you talking about?
But there might be other forms of social identities in which they can discuss.
All right. So if you've encouraged teenager Joe to go to his father and say, Dad, I want to talk about racism. And Joe Sr. says, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, well, is there anything like racism that you've experienced? So he's got to make something up. He's got to pull something from his memory that maybe kind of sort of comes into play to what? Empathize with his kid because his kid is badgering him about racist experiences? What?
So we want you all to think about your own experiences and your positionality.
Oh, my own experience, my positionality. Okay, well, how about the time I went out on a date with I was dating a non-white girl. And I only say that because it's unfortunately relevant to the conversation. One of the first things she asked me, we were talking on a dating website, right? We're chatting beforehand. And early on, before we met each other in real life, she asked me, have you ever dated a brown girl before? Now, this was 2014, 2015, something like that, right? This is a long, long time ago, almost 10 years ago now. Holy cats. And I was so naive at that point in time, or at least more naive enough to think that all this kind of stuff was more on the fringe than it actually was. I didn't even understand why that question was relevant. I honestly stopped and I was like, what? And at that point in time in my life, as far as dating was concerned, no, I hadn't. But I didn't understand what the relevance was. So I wrote back, I said, no. Have you ever dated a white boy before? I said as a joke. And she's like, yeah, like, okay. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But by the third date, we're sitting in a sushi restaurant and she starts talking about how she was picked on as a kid and she was bullied because of this, that, and the other, and they're teased and this, that. And, you know, I was able to relate to her. The same thing happened to me because I was smaller, I was quiet, I had glasses, you know, I was more studious and shy, and I got picked on and beat up and so on. And then she gives me this smug little smile and she's like, yeah, but I mean, you're white. And I'm like, what? And he says, we've got white privilege. And I just about lost it. I almost did really lose it. It was something else. It was something else. The relationship did not last further beyond that night. So yeah, I've experienced racialized trauma, but here's the problem. It's not trauma because she was the one being racist. We both related to each other, similar life experiences, but she told me that my experience was undervalued because of my skin color, that my experience counted less because of my skin color. So what do I do with that information? Well, I mark her as a unwanted partner in life because seriously, why would you want to be in a relationship with someone who you know is passively devaluing your failures, your tragedies, your successes, and your achievements on a daily basis because of your skin color? And they think of themselves and their trauma, their stress, their struggle as superior to yours because of their skin color. Wasn't a fun time. Didn't enjoy it. Hope never to have it happen again. You ridiculous lunatic, thank you so much for the happy, laughy dog cat fox. Oh, dog cat fox.
Wowie, wow, wow.
That's a Weebo Jones dog cat fox. Thank you so much, Luna. Appreciate that's very generous of you. Thank you. All right, we've got a couple more minutes before I'm going to wrap this up. All right, so I don't know if I'll do a part 2 on this. You guys will have to let me know in the comments. That'll encourage some comment activity if you want to see a part 2 on this, but let's get to the next slide at least.
And just share with us in the chat. So first, before you share, we want you to think back to your first memory of understanding race.
My first memory of understanding race. In what way? Like understanding that there were other races? What do you mean?
So think a little bit about that. The first time you heard about it, the first time you understood your own experience. And
the first time I understood my own experience? I honestly don't know what you mean.
And understanding what race was.
What race was. The first time that I had any cognizance of race, all I knew it as, because I grew up with friends from several different ethnicities and races. And I swear, the only thing I saw it as is different people look different because of their parents. That's all I knew. It meant nothing to me as a child. You know, I was about to say some specific names, but I don't like, you know, when you grow up and you know a kid and you say their whole name all at once, because that's how you understand names is come out all at once. You don't just say John. You just say, you know, because when you're growing up, there's probably like 3 different Johns or 4 different Henriettas or something. I know Henrietta's not that common, but you know what I mean. So you say the whole name at once to distinguish one from the other to your parents when you're talking about somebody. I was just about to say the entire name of somebody reflexively, because that's still how my mind remembers them, because I haven't seen them in 40 years or whatever. So, yeah, but anyway, I knew lots of different kids from lots of different backgrounds who all looked a lot different from one another. And it didn't mean anything to me because it didn't. It just didn't. Nobody made a deal out of it. And the one time in elementary school, the one time where a bully, a mean kid, said something that connotated a girl's race in order to insult her, everybody in the classroom, and this was like second or third grade, everybody in the classroom was just agape, like absolutely like, what? Like some of us didn't even understand what was going on. Some of us had seen at that point the videos from the civil rights era and everything and had some connotation of what was going on there. But as soon as that kid said something, everybody was, oh, and the teacher just flipped out. And this kid was in so much trouble. And this was the 1980s, right? This was the 1980s. It was something else. It was an event. I have it vividly in my mind because it was so out of place in my world and the world of everybody else in my class at that time. Anyway, I guess that might be the first time I quote unquote recognized race, if that's what you mean.
And your race.
Mm-hmm.
And then share in the chat this first question. So how did you deal with racial stress if you experienced it as a teenager?
I don't know that I ever experienced racial stress as a teenager. I don't know that I ever did.
So we will have folks just spend a couple of seconds populating that in the chat and sharing with others.
Uh-huh.
I just received a message that the chat is disabled. So they're unable to put it in the chat, but maybe
Q&A feature.
Q&A.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, with that technical difficulty specified, and we're 22 on the video. That's a good number to remember because it's very Harvey Dent Two-Face. We're going to stop there for the sake of the stream. I'll take a minute to look over your comments and things if there's anything else you'd like to say before I wrap up. Oh, Lexi Mads was here. I think I saw her earlier. Gotta go. Catch you guys later. Love you all. Bye, Lexi. Bye, Lexi. Have a good Sunday. Bye. Advocast Diabli, feeling a little disappointed. We never heard from the much lauded Dr. Henry. No, we heard from Dr. Henry. Dr. Henry was, or is, I should say, where is she? There she is. That's Dr. Henry. Dr. Henry's there. So we did hear from Dr. Henry, but only briefly. And then we jumped back to the other speakers. Even though we were promised that Dr. Henry was going to explain everything, maybe that comes later. Yeah, maybe that's later on down the line. I don't know. So we did briefly. Chat has disabilities. Lol. Yeah. Chat is disabled. Let's see. A guy in his room. Some disabled people here might not be able to hear or see or type, but are somehow mysteriously watching the stream. I guess if it's disabled, how did they know that people were there in the first place? I don't know. Mike R, have a God rest of your weekend, chat. Yes, everyone. Have a God rest of your weekend. How does a God rest? How does Zeus recline? I wonder. Probably by turning himself into a goose and finding a new girlfriend somewhere. Something like that, I guess. Anyway, everybody, I'm going to wrap things up here. Let's see, some housekeeping things. First and foremost, you can find me tonight on the Midnight's Edge After Dark channel at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for what is now being called the Shit List, wherein whatever subject we are handed as participants, we then have to give our top 5 choices on that subject. And tonight's subject, as far as I know, is our favorite direct-to-video movies or non-theatrical release movies, depending on the circumstances. So look for that, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern tonight on the Midnight's Edge After Dark channel. Also, I have a Discord. Discord link is in the chat, and all you have to do to join the Discord is to click on that link. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello, and in addition to saying hello, you just have to give the secret word. And today's secret word is racial battle fatigue. Can you remember that? Racial battle fatigue. That's what we're looking for. So just say, hello, racial battle fatigue, and you too can join the Discord server and see all the other people who hang out here also politely and positively every day, regardless of what you look like, where you are, and so on, because I'm all inclusive, right? And speaking of inclusion, if you would include in your exit strategy from this stream to click on the like button, to subscribe to the channel with notifications if you can, and afterwards, if you are so inclined, leave a comment, because apparently all of that helps out the channel. And maybe someday we will catch up to the timeline in which this stream had 2,000 likes. Fingers crossed. We'll find out when that happens. Beyond that, you can find me here every Thursday for TED Excellence at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays. And of course, the Sunday stream, as you've already been here for, at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on Sundays, with perhaps various streams and or shows in between, depending on when the mood strikes me, because that's how I handle my channel. Anyway, everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very little to do. Beyond me having to remind myself, there are GoFundMes at the top of the chat box, and I should have mentioned it earlier, but I didn't, but I should have, and here I go. Please take a look at the GoFundMes at the top of the chat box for Maddie and Angry Illinoisian. Maddie has been diagnosed with cancer. Angry Illinoisian is suffering from a work-related injury. Both of them could use your help if you have it to give. If you can donate, please do so. If you can't, please consider sharing those out on social media. And related to that, thank you guys so much for your generosity, either to myself or to the GoFundMes at the top of the chat box. Hope you learned something from this. I don't know if I did, but maybe we will. If you want a part 2 on this, where we continue on this conversation, this important, difficult conversation, let me know in the comments. Beyond that, everybody, have a good rest of your Sunday. Hope you have a good rest of the weekend. Hope the week ahead of you is fun and productive, or at least productive, if not fun. And I hope you're all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.